Mark this date, Monday, July 28th. Wokeness is officially dead. It has been murdered by the clothing company American Eagle. American Eagle's weapon of choice was Sydney Sweeney's body. And as we all celebrate the nostalgic return of normal arousal in advertising, some on the right are facing a nagging moral question. Is gawking at half-naked hot blondes really conservative? I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. A Cincinnati Jazz Festival has turned violent and gone viral as a gang of black teens attacks older white people. We will get to all of the political implications of this. First, though, I want to tell you about Boll & Branch. Go to bollandbranch.com/Knowles. You know that feeling when you invest in something truly well-made, like those leather boots that only get more comfortable with each wear, or that solid wood table that'll outlast 3 apartments. That is exactly what I discovered with Boll & Branch sheets. They're crafted with that same philosophy of lasting quality. While most bedding deteriorates, these sheets actually get better and softer wash after wash, making them one of those rare purchases that keeps rewarding you long after you've made it. You know what I slept in last night? My Boll & Branch sheets. I love them. You want to know what it's like to sleep with me? Get Boll & Branch. What sets them apart is their 100% organic cotton, this breathable, durable weave that you can feel the quality of immediately. I've had Boll & Branch sheets for like 7 years or something now. They're so good. Multiple U.S. presidents have slept in them, and your favorite podcaster. Plus, Boll & Branch backs it up with a 30-night worry-free guarantee, so you can try them risk-free. Get the best savings of the season during Boll & Branch's annual summer event. Get 20% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. Boll & Branch, B-O-L-L-A-N-D, branch.com/Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, to save 20% and unlock free shipping. Limited time only. Exclusions apply. She did it. It's not she. They did it. They did it, folks. American Eagle with Sydney Sweeney. They ended wokeness. There have been a lot of moments where we said, is wokeness dead? With the end of the 2024 election, Trump wins with the popular vote. Was that the end of wokeness? Was, I don't know, the canceling of Bud Light, was that the end of wokeness? I think this is as good a date as any. For those of you who have not seen it yet, I'll pick one of the more wholesome of the American Eagle advertisements. Sydney Sweeney working on a classic muscle car, selling jeans. For those who are only listening right now, Sydney Sweeney, she's fully clothed, and she just then walks away.
Sydney Sweeney has her jeans.
Kind of rubs the back of her jeans, gets in a sweet-looking Mustang, says American Eagle. She drives away. That's it. She's got a tank top on. She's not showing too much cleavage. She's got the most skin she's showing really is her shoulders and her feet. I mean, it is not, she's got baggy jeans on. It's not even that tight, but it shows some of Sydney Sweeney's assets. That's how she's selling the clothes. This commercial, even down to the car, even down to the presence of the Mustang in it, is the polar opposite of one of the other most prominent commercials of this year, that one for Jaguar, which showed a bunch of gender-bending eunuchs trying to sell old lady British cars. Remember this one? Got a bunch of people of dubious sex, weird-looking Martian kind of people in frilly costumes. Live vivid. Delete ordinary. It's a key phrase. Delete ordinary. Break molds. It's a bunch of like drag queen type looking, not even drag queen, just androgynous people on some weird purple planet. Copy nothing. Jaguar. So this is the opposite. If the Jaguar commercial was the apotheosis of liberalism, the Sydney Sweeney commercial, just looking good in a pair of jeans, is the end of it. There's good news and bad news about this commercial. The good news is it's not 2020 anymore. 2020, culturally, politically, probably peak wokeness. The good news is that's done. We're past that. The bad news is we have apparently gone back to 1998. That's it. We haven't gone back to the 1950s. We haven't gone back to the 1600s. We haven't gone back to the 1320s. We're back in about 1998. What passes for conservatism now is mainstream 90s liberalism. Bill Clintonism. Is there anything more Bill Clinton? Hey, honey, I love those jeans. Love American Eagle. That's what we get. And yet, I think this is still broadly a good thing, even though it's not perfect. The first question you have to grapple with is, why is Sydney Sweeney the it girl of today? She's a very good-looking lady, but why is she the hottest chick that ever walked on a screen ever? I don't know. People seem to think so today. Why? I think the reason why is because she looks normal, like a really, really good version of normal. At a time, especially in 2025, when every prominent woman seems to have Ozempic face and those giant clown lips and has made themselves into a hyper-real caricature of a woman, it's as if the men decided to turn themselves into caricatures of women through drag queenism and transgenderism, and then the women decided to try to look like the transgender men, and it's just become this weird, hyper-real caricature. Sydney Sweeney comes out, and she looks natural, and everything looks normal, albeit very good, and she looks like the hottest version of the girl next door. And I think that doesn't appeal in every age, but that appeals in our age. And she seems normal in that at a time when all of the movie starlets and all the TV starlets and the Instagram influencers are braying about politics and abortion and killing kids and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Sydney Sweeney is just kind of bubbly and nice and doesn't really get involved in all that and just does her job and smiles and looks good on camera. She's a pretty good actress. And that's really refreshing. It's a return to how things were in the 90s. But what conservatives have to grapple with then is the 90s weren't all that great. We now think retrospectively that they were great because many of us were children in the 90s. And you always think the era that you were a kid during was the height of civilization. But there were a lot of problems. You had massive violence. You had relative highs of street violence. Social solidarity was fraying. You had a real high point in the divorce rate. You had the peak of abortion activism, or a peak of abortion activism. You had, it was the decade of Bill Clinton. So it wasn't all that great. Should we be happy to be returning to that? Are conservatives really the party of just like gawking at blondes and arousing lusts? And is that it? I don't think so. But gawking at Sydney Sweeney is a lot better than gawking at some weird polyandrogynous trans eunuchs. The companies deciding to sell normal sex is better than companies deciding to sell weird sex. Do you understand why? The reason why is you don't want companies to sell sex generally because it's bad to arouse lusts, and really strong civilized societies don't do that, don't prey on that. It's not just a civilization of guys like Wile E. Coyote, their jaw drops to the floor, the tongue unfurls, constantly in a state of titillation. That's not what you want. But it is better, if you have to choose, it's better for a company to sell normal sex than to sell weird sex. Because selling normal sex plays on lust, which is a vice. But selling weird sex, like androgynous, LGBT, bizarro world, polycule stuff, is not only sometimes playing on vice, but it's also contrary to nature. That's why not all, traditionally in Christianity, sexual sins are considered pretty important. They're not the worst sins of all, but they're significant, one, because they're so widespread, and there are differing degrees of sexual sin. It's bad to fornicate. It's really bad to cheat on your wife, but there are some sins that are contrary to nature. And so what I think you're seeing with the Sydney Sweeney defeating wokeness is you are seeing nature healing. It's become kind of a meme. Nature is healing. Sydney Sweeney is showing off her cleavage. Nature is healing. But it is a return to nature. It's a return to how she's a pretty girl showing off her body in kind of normal ways and arousing men in normal ways to sell blue jeans. And we want grace to perfect nature. We want to overcome some of our more animal nature. But given how degraded a state our culture has found itself in, I say at least 2 cheers for Sydney Sweeney. I'm not willing to go 3 cheers for the Sydney Sweeney ad campaign because we want to move into an even more civilized, wholesome kind of culture. But for now, given where we've been, 2 cheers. 2 cheers for American Eagle. This is good stuff. Sometimes when a culture is really decayed, you need a bridge. This is what Trump does. Is Trump Russell Kirk? Is Trump Edmund Burke? Is Trump some, I don't know, Cicero or something like that? Not quite. He's a brash billionaire reality TV star, famously a playboy who's dated supermodels. So he's not this picture of tweedy conservatism, but he is a bridge from where we were, radical leftism, back to a normal country. Make America great again. I'm with you. I want a normal, flourishing society. That's what he is. And I'll take it. I'm into it, okay? Now, speaking of relations between the sexes, there is a major scandal involving a new app called the T app, where women try to spread gossip about men, and then the women just got hacked, so gossip is being spread about them. And before we spill the tea, I want to tell you about oil and natural gas. That's why I want to tell you about Chevron.
America is built on hard work and powered by American energy. Chevron has spent $44 billion with local businesses across all 50 states since 2022, fueling infrastructure and communities, all while strengthening local economies. Last year, Chevron increased U.S. production nearly 20%, powering communities and businesses. From the heartlands to the coasts, we're helping to fuel America's energy advantage, building a brighter future right here at home. Visit chevron.com/America to discover more.
Are you ready for the tea? So there's a new app. I'm not on it. I'm very pleased to say that I missed online dating. Sweet little Elise and I, who had been high school sweethearts, really met in middle school. We got together just as online dating was taking off. So I've never really been on the apps. And there's the Tinder, and there's, if you're a Democrat, there's Grindr, and there's Bumble, and whatever, Hinge, and all this. But there's now, we're so far down the rabbit hole of online dating that there are now apps about the apps. There are ancillary dating apps that allow you to warn other people about the people that you're going to meet on the dating apps, one of which was called T. So the New York Times is reporting that there was a data breach with T. T was this app where girls and women could log on. They had to prove who they were, so they submitted their IDs or whatever. And then they said, hey, I went on a date with Johnny, and he's a creep. Or, I went on a date with Bill, and he didn't pick up the tab. Or it was basically Yelp for online dating. Reviews of men that other women could date. So before you go on, after you match with the guy, but before you go on the date with the guy, you can go to Guy Yelp and read reviews based on his past customers, the other women who've gone on dates with him. Well, now it seems that those gossipy women have been hoisted with their own petard because there was a data breach that exposed the photos and ID cards of the women who signed up for T, which was exploding in the app stores, getting a ton of downloads. So on Friday, T said hackers had breached a data storage system, exposing 72,000 images, including selfies and photo ID of the users. This app is not totally new, though it was really exploding recently, but it was released in 2023, and it was even likened among its users as a Yelp service for women. So this, of course, raised a question for men. If women can have an app that allows them to warn each other about whether a guy is creepy or cheap or doesn't look like his pictures or something, can men have an app that warns other men of whether or not women are crazy? If the chief fear for the women is that the man is a creep, which is what this was ostensibly about, are these men dangerous? If the chief fear was that the women would put themselves in a bad situation going on a date with these men, well, the same could be true of men. I'm not saying that women are as physically strong as men, but sometimes they boil men's rabbits. Sometimes there are some crazy birds out there. And so can men have an app where we upload pictures of women and we say, oh, don't go on a date with this girl, she's a total lunatic? No, of course not. That would be totally reprehensible. But the whole thing is really reprehensible. And I think that's what this is exposing. This is one of these great news stories because everyone involved is getting exactly what he and she deserves. Because they are treating dating like going shopping for a handbag. They are treating human beings as commodities to be rated and reviewed like a restaurant. And as a consequence, they themselves are being treated as commodities. Their identities are being leaked online. They're being shared around. They're being rated and reviewed and judged and subject to all of the public scrutiny that they were subjecting the men to. Everyone is getting exactly what he deserves. If you are treating men like restaurants, you are already doing it wrong. And I know what the answer is going to be. The response is going to be, well, Michael, what option do they have? In the modern dating world, these women just swipe men on the internet. They have no idea who they are. They could be axe murderers. And then they show up and go on dates and have dinner with them. And, often they'll end up back at their apartments 2 hours after they met. Right? You should not do that. That's not, that would be, if you recognize that there's something disordered about that, then don't do it. You should not be just randomly meeting strangers on the internet. That's probably a bad idea. A lot of people date that way now, but there are at least ways to put some limits on it. And you could circumscribe it. You can say, okay, I'm only going to meet men within this certain area where at least I'm a member of the community. So I might know this. Oh, this person goes to this gym, goes to this church, attended this school. Maybe I know people who know that person. There are, in fact, apps based on mutual connections that way. That's one way to do it. Or you could do it the old fashioned way and say, hey, sis, do you know any guys that I could date? Hey, even coworker, can you recommend someone that I could go on a date with, get set up on a blind date? You could meet someone through a more organic activity like school or church or work or something like that. If you, though, just treat dating like an open marketplace, well, then you're going to be treated like a good that is bought and sold in the marketplace. This actually kind of relates to the Sydney Sweeney story in that we are now, left and right, going back at best to the 1990s. But the 1990s weren't all that great. The 1990s were in many ways the triumph of the free market above all, the supposedly free market above all. You even had a liberal like Bill Clinton come out and say, the era of big government is over. We're going to privatize. We're going to let the invisible hand of the market do its work. So you had the right talking about that for a couple of decades. And then even the left came around and it spread around the West, not only in America. You had Bill Clinton in the United States. You had Tony Blair in the United Kingdom. The New Democrats, New Labor, this worship of market dynamics, a move toward privatization. But we realized there was a problem with that. Politically, the problem was we were then surrendering a lot of power to corporations who were even less accountable in many ways than the government was. And personally, we were commoditizing everything to the point that now we've commoditized even human babies. You can go to the baby store, you can purchase eggs, you can purchase sperm, you can make a baby like you would design a Build-A-Bear in a toy shop in the mall. And I think we're starting to recognize that's not really good. I mean, that is at a very, very basic level, a kind of idolatry where you are treating, in the case of the advertising, you're treating these glittering images of a cute girl as a kind of a god or goddess that you're worshiping. So persuasive that you're going to go buy the blue jeans. And in the case of the T app, you're treating you're conflating human beings with the glittering images on the screen, and you're reviewing them in a way that is deeply inhuman. Not good. They're getting exactly what they deserve. But we're doing relationships wrong generally. There's a woman who's gone viral. Oh, this was sad. Chaos with Camille, I guess, is her handle. She went viral for explaining why she is divorcing her perfectly nice husband whom she loves.
Earlier this year, I told my husband I wanted a divorce. And this would probably shock a lot of my friends and my family because I hadn't told anybody, okay? I walked myself through the logistics of where would I live, how would we split the time with the kids, who gets the dog, where, all of those things, okay? Had a full breakdown. I feel like I have been searching for something in my relationship that we don't have for the whole time we've been married, which has been 10 years. There is not a single thing about my husband in and of himself that I do not love. Let me be very clear about that. He is the most self-disciplined, loyal, hardworking, good person that you could meet on this planet. And that is probably the reason why I have not left. Okay. Our relationship and what my expectations are for my marriage and what they always have been are not met, right? Which I don't know if anybody's are. The reason that pushed me to even bring up divorce and talk about it was the fact that I feel like I can't be myself with my husband. And it's really confusing because I'm 32 years old. I am a mom of 3. And I still don't know who I am.
Okay. I was going to stop and start. I was going to examine. I'm like hypnotized by this woman's nonsense because it's so sad and it's so typical of our culture. She says, yeah, okay, I'm going to get divorced. I've already gamed through all of it. Who's going to get our 3 kids? 3 kids? This horrid woman, this horrid, wicked witch. She's going to do that to her kids for no reason other than that she feels like she's missing something. What is she missing? She can't tell you. What is her husband not providing? She can't tell you that either. He's great. She loves everything about him, but she just feels like something's missing. So she's going to ruin her kids' lives. She's going to ruin her husband's life. She's going to probably even screw up the dog a little bit, because she just feels like there must be something else out there, right? This is the imagination of man's heart is evil from his very youth. You know that line right after the flood of Noah, and then the water goes away, and then Noah starts sacrificing animals to God, and God says, oh, right, the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. That's what that is. That's even, I mentioned on the show a week or two ago, Drew Clavin's favorite joke, the orange for a head joke. I won't retell the joke, but the punchline is a guy has an orange for a head because he asked for it, and which is about the perversity of man's heart. That's it. This woman self-sabotaging, saying, you know, my life is just too good. There must be something better. There must be. This is truly awful, but it's how a lot of us think about relationships and even up to marriage. And I'll give you a very practical tool for avoiding this. If you make it all about you, something like this is going to happen. If you make it about not you, it's less likely to happen. If you make it about God, it most likely will not happen. It almost certainly will not happen. And in fact, it's within your power for it not to happen. You understand the distinction? If you make your life just all about you, if you merely go back to, if you live in 2020 liberalism, where it's just all about me, and my identity, and I can redefine reality, you're going to do this stuff. If you even go back to 90s liberalism, which is about, you know, I'm going to live for me now, man, and I'm going to pursue my interest economically, politically, personally, sexually, whatever, any of these things, then you're not going to be satisfied because you're not enough. You're not sufficient. Your heart is longing for something that it will not find in a temporal and material world, because you are not merely material. Your intellect is not material. Your intellect is immaterial. So you're grasping for something that you cannot grab in a temporal and material way. So you're always going to be unsatisfied if that's where your aim is. If you make your relationships, your relationship to your husband, your relationship to reality, about something other than yourself, if you make it about the other person, that's better. But ultimately, you have to make it about God, because only in God, who is unchanging, who is eternal, who is spirit, who made you, who for many, many reasons, only in God will you find your peace. Only in God will you find the satisfaction for the longings of your soul that cannot be satisfied in this world. And then you'll stay in your marriage because God told you to. And then you'll actually be happy in your marriage. And marriage here is just one example. You'll be happy in your work. You'll be happy in your suffering even. Because you will be binding yourself to a God who suffers for you. This is the big shift. And this is also why, I guess the theme of the whole show, this is why 90s liberalism is not enough, because 90s liberalism was just before that new atheist movement. You saw a massive decline of religion in the 1990s. It's not going to work. And we can't just go back to the 80s, greed is good, Gordon Gekko, and we certainly can't go back to the 70s where we replaced religion with drugs, and we can't go back to the 60s where we replaced the Christian age with the age of Aquarius, and first of all, you can't go back in time, period, but you can recover things that existed in the past that don't necessarily exist now, and we got to dig a lot deeper. It's not, we have to stop, especially on the right, with this notion that we've just gone a little too far. We just need to rewind 5 or 10 years. That doesn't work. It's not that we've gone so far. We've gone like 500 years off the rails, okay? And so we need to dig fundamentally if we want to recover a good civilization that isn't literally dying because of a declining birth rate, because of a declining marriage rate, because women like that horrid witch decide to abandon their husbands because they just feel like there's something else out there. It's an illusion. It's glittering images on a screen. Knock it off. Now, speaking of images on a screen that you should go watch, you should check out Yes or No. Because I sat down with my friend Dave Rubin. Should leaking risque photos be illegal? Do lesbians use their relationships to train for MMA competition? Do you believe in God? Find out the answers in the latest episode of Yes or No with Mr. Rubin.
Did female MMA get so popular because it gave lesbian couples a professional outlet?
Watch the full episode right now on the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. For the uncensored ad-free version, subscribe to DailyWire Plus. Speaking of ugliness, Barack Obama's presidential library is being built. It's substantially built already, and it is the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. It's so totally horrid. Why? What is it? If you're not watching, if you're just listening right now, I'll try to describe it. It looks like a big, gray, misshapen egg with, but like the ugliest egg you ever saw. I don't know. It looks like an Easter Island head. It's just so gross. It's nauseating. Why? Why does Obama want this for his presidential library? I'll tell you why. For the same reason that the libs built all of brutalist architecture. Brutalism is just socialism in architecture. I don't mean to sound like a huge boomer right now. Barack Hussein Obama is a socialist. He kind of is. He kind of is. And actually, at least the socialists 100 years ago were kind of edgy. At least they were somewhat avant-garde. At least they were trying out new ideas. The modern socialists are so lame because they're so passé. Because this has all been done. Brutalism is 60 years old or more. It's so lame now. But when I say brutalism is socialism in architecture, I mean that in a pretty technical way. The Eastern Bloc countries, overcome by the Soviet Union, they built socialist architecture. Washington, D.C., during the middle of the 20th century, when extreme liberals and socialists had a lot of sway there, built ugly brutalist architecture. Why? A lot of university campuses, especially state schools, have brutalist architecture, but it's so ugly. It's drab. The color is awful. It's without ornamentation. The angles are ugly. It's just so depressing. It's spiritually oppressive. Why? Well, it follows earlier modern architectural movements, going back to Bauhaus or the International style even, or this notion that form follows function. Very socialist. The idea that you should have nothing superfluous. You should have nothing that is merely for ornamentation or for beauty's sake. You want to use the cheapest materials possible with the simplest designs possible that are clinical, that get the job done. And then you can, all the extra material and all the extra resources of design, you can go use to build even more blocky monstrosities. Because we're just going to have the form of the building follow function. But that doesn't actually work. Because function actually follows form a lot of the time. This is an example I used last week in a different context. You can have two courthouses. One, some ugly, brutalist, tiny little rat maze. Another, a big temple, like the Supreme Court building, say, in Washington, D.C. Big, giant, high ceilings, big columns, weight, marble. We naturally feel that there will be greater justice done in the Supreme Court building. Why? Because the architecture reflects the function of the building. It's grand, it's big, it elevates itself higher and closer to heaven where true justice lies. It's made of durable materials. There's air. It allows a man to stand up straight with a feeling of dignity. It looks like a temple. It is invoking principles of divine justice. It's solid. The modern, ugly office building kind of courtroom, it feels like any other ephemeral building or organization, subject to all the same political intrigue, subject to all the same pettiness, temporary, made of cheap materials that are not going to last. Forget millennia or centuries. They're not going to last 20 years. You just feel as though there's less connection to justice, which is the point of the building. The function can follow the form. If you live in a home, and the home is just one of these disgusting, it's not quite as bad as the Obama library, but it's just one of these weird, like blocky things they build in the suburbs now, black and white little cubes. You could say, well, the form follows function. Look at how much usable space I have. Look, I have a big kitchen island or whatever. Is it going to feel like home? Is it going to feel comfortable to you? I feel like I'm living in a dentist's office if I have to stay in one, even like an Airbnb, if I have to stay in one of these homes. It's so cold, so clinical. It doesn't feel like home. You know what feels like home to me? Ornamentation, detail, all the little nuances that trigger our memory. Nice materials, some of which can be a little more, they don't always have to be expensive, but if they're a little more expensive, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it adds something. It's so Barack Obama's library reflects his politics. And it's a politics that is not only passé, it's a politics that has not only roundly been rejected, it's a politics that is not only ugly, but it's just been disproven. It doesn't work. The central claims that it makes are just wrong. That's why we're trying to knock it down and build beautiful things again, great things again. Okay. Now, speaking of Dems looking bad, the Democrats just completely obliterated themselves with a tweet that they tried to delete, but not before someone caught a screen grab. We'll get to that in one moment. First, I want to tell you about an exciting new project that I am working on. I'm pleased to announce a brand new original docuseries coming to DailyWire Plus from your favorite podcast host to give you the very first look. It is titled The Pope and the Fuhrer, The Secret Vatican Files of World War II. Yes, the title is as provocative as the truth it uncovers. For decades, Pope Pius XII, one of the great men of the 20th century, has been maligned, he has been slandered, he has been condemned for his supposed silence during World War II and the Nazi atrocities. And this has always been wrong. And we are Pope Pius XII respecters on this show, and you should be too. Now, though, with unprecedented access to the Vatican's wartime archives, we uncover what really happened and why history may have gotten it all wrong. The series premieres Wednesday, August 13th, exclusively on DailyWire Plus. Here's your first look. History is written by the victors. But what if the victors got it wrong? For 80 years, the world has condemned one man as the Pope of Silence, the man who stood by in the face of shocking evil. But can we trust the popular narrative, even after all these years? This is not just a story about Hitler and the Holocaust. One of the worst lies ever told about the Catholic Church is what she did or did not do in one of modernity's darkest hours. Now, for the first time, the Vatican's secret archive is open, and the truth is far more shocking than the fiction. Propagandists have peddled one story for decades, but now we can definitively know better. Join me in this 4-part series, where we will discover the true story of Pope Pius XII, Hitler, and the Second World War. The Pope and the Fuhrer, 4 episodes, nearly an hour each. Not 1 second wasted. DailyWire Plus members can start streaming August 13th. Are you not a member yet? Well, you're crazy. Join today at DailyWirePlus.com. My favorite comment yesterday, or no, I guess this would have been on Friday, is from Samuel Underwood, 5286, who says, Mary's fiat is the exact opposite of my body, my choice. So true. And actually today, if you pray the rosary today, you would be praying the joyful mysteries. You'd start out with the Annunciation when the angel comes to Mary and says, Hail Mary, you're going to conceive a child. And Mary says, I'm the Lord's handservant. Let it be done according to his will. It's quite the, now we say, my body, my choice. To the point that you even had a self-described Christian Democrat go on Joe Rogan's show and talk about how wonderful it is that the Holy Mother could have aborted our Lord. Sick stuff. I like that. Yeah, good comment. Very, very good comment. Okay. Speaking of Democrats looking bad, this is a tweet for the ages. Bookmark it, frame it, put it up in the Smithsonian. Got to give a hat tip here to Tony Kinnett from the Daily Signal. He grabbed this before the Democrats deleted it. So the Democrats, this is the official Democrat account, tweets out Trump's America. And it's a chart. It says, U.S. grocery prices reached record highs in 2025. Prices are higher today than they were on July 2024 in all major categories listed below. And then you have cheese, alcohol, grocery, dairy, produce, meat. And you see this chart, and among all of them, it really shot up. But you got to look at the time scale, because it begins, what is that? That's October 2019, I think. Then it goes to October 2024. So then right when you get to the end of the screen, presumably you're getting into 2025. The problem is the real spike where it all just shoots way, way up top, kind of levels off by the end, but it shoots way, way up, is after 2020. It's actually from 2021 through 2023, 24, and it's kind of leveling off. In other words, it all happened under Biden. And so then if you try to go to it, it says, this page doesn't exist. Try searching for something else. And luckily our pal, Tony Kinnett, was able to grab it before they deleted it. Think about how this tweet was posted. We always joke about the social media intern. That there were social media interns in like 2008. Now there are major agencies and very serious professionals who work in social media. This was not just some high school kid's accident. There was a Democrat operative who saw this chart, read the chart, maybe reformatted the chart, posted it to the official Democrat Twitter account, wrote the caption, and clicked publish without realizing that it shows the exact opposite of the point he wanted to make. That's the first part. Second part, imagine you're the Democrats right now. You are so desperate for ways to attack your opponent. Your opponent, Trump, and the Republicans, they're doing so well that the best way you have to attack them is to say that grocery prices have gotten higher, and that's actually your fault. The one thing you've got is grocery prices, which isn't even a great way to attack them. And then, on top of all that, you find out it's all your fault. Really, really bad. Not looking good. Okay, speaking of Democrat polities, before we go, Cincinnati Jazz Festival took place over the weekend, and it went viral, not for all those great blue notes, but because a gang of black teens were caught on camera brutally attacking older white people, a man and a woman. So there's a video of it. Knocking this guy down the middle of the street, just kicking him in the head. Women too, not just the men, it's women with their heels kicking this guy. Screaming. Crazy, just stomping his head. And then you got people standing on, not trying to help, not even trying to hurt him, just filming. And this is just dropping on top of him. All right, you get the point on the video. It just keeps going on and on and on. Then there's a picture posted of a woman. We blurred her face, but a woman just knocked out cold, reportedly bleeding from the mouth. Nice looking woman. Just totally knocked out. And lest you think this is just something spreading on social media, but it isn't real or whatever, Cincinnati.com, Cincinnati Enquirer, is reporting on this. Videos of fight in downtown Cincinnati sparked discourse over city safety. What we know. So it's real. This is really happening. But the media are trying not to cover it. You're not going to see much more coverage than that in the establishment press. And they're trying to obfuscate what's going on here. Oh, there was a fight. A fight. The woman's bleeding from her mouth. This guy is getting pummeled by a whole gang of people. Oh, well, it's sparking discourse. No, it should be sparking prosecutions and lengthy prison sentences or more. I'm not going to do the thing. The thing that you're supposed to do when there's a video like this with a racial angle where it's, a gang of black people attack white people or something. There's the thing you're supposed to say, which is imagine if the roles were reversed here. Imagine. Not even when it's always racial, or if it's like a Democrat and a Republican. Imagine if the roles were reversed. I'm not going to do that thing. Don't worry. Because everyone knows the reactions would be different. No one cares. That kind of statement doesn't shed any new light on any stories which we've seen for decades. What is to be done about this sort of thing? What the left would say is we need to have conversations. We need to have a conversation about race. We need to really have a conversation. We need to converse. We need to open our mouths, have sounds come out, sounds which are symbols to communicate something so that we can converse. That's not it. That's not going to do anything. We've had a lot of conversations. The only thing you can do that would be right for the victims, most especially, but even the right thing for the perpetrators, would be to ruthlessly enforce the law against violent crime. This is really pathetic that Cincinnati puts up with this, but it's true in a lot of our cities. And whenever something like this happens, it's often swept under the rug if the racial angle goes in the right direction, or it's blown up to be an international incident if the racial angle of it fits the liberal narrative. But the only thing to do that would be just for everyone is to ruthlessly enforce the law. I think even of like Plato's Gorgias, an ancient philosophical text in which Socrates makes the point that to be, obviously, we're thinking about this for the victims, these poor victims who can't walk the street at night without being bludgeoned by gangs. But even the perpetrators, you do wrong by the perpetrators when you don't lock them up for this, because you encourage this kind of behavior, and they behave like wild animals. And Socrates is calling this many moons ago, or Plato is calling this in the voice of Socrates, where he says you actually harm perpetrators when you don't discipline them for their bad behavior, because it's worse to do wrong than to have wrong done to you. To have wrong done to you is just a part of human life in a fallen world. To do wrong actually damages your soul. And so for everyone, the only thing you can do at a practical political level, if you run on, we're going to have a conversation, If you run on that, if you run on the liberal line, I don't think that's going to appeal to people these days. And if you run on, I don't know, some kind of really hard line kind of racial campaign or something where you say, like we're going to punish this race or this group or whatever, that's not going to work either. That's going to repel people. But if you just run and say, we're going to enforce the law ruthlessly, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may, and that's going to be good for everyone involved, and we're going to make sure that there's justice, especially at this moment in time, I think that wins. I think that wins even in blue cities like Cincinnati. There was the media were always puffing and huffing about this notion that we have an over-incarceration problem, but of course we don't. If videos like that are going around, we have a major under-incarceration problem. We need to lock more people up for much longer, and we need punishments to be much harsher. And we need the prosecutions and the punishment. We need harder punishments. We need probably a return to labor in prisons, turning big rocks into small rocks. We need the punishments to increase until morale improves. Our issue today publicly is not that we're treating criminals too harshly. That I promise you. Okay. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.